to talk about some of the important aspects of making the film and how it was really important to capture certain things and like certain parts of the building and the setting that are really important because they kind of symbolize Holden and like his personality. That was all filmed at the Doubletree downtown. I picked the Doubletree because it's more of like it's an older hotel, and their fixtures in it are relatively like fancy stuff, and it's more or less high class, and I wanted to keep that really original to the story. And then also the long hallway that you saw. In a film, in any film, long hallways are especially important for building suspense. I also wanted the length of the hallway to be kind of a symbol for Holden's mind, because it's really narrow and it's pretty unidirectional. He only goes one direction in life, and it's whatever mindset he has at that moment. And then also, it was important that I had mirrors in the shots because the point in which Maurice snaps Holden on his pajamas, in the book, I wanted to keep really close to the story of the book because without it, it would lose some of its power. And in the book, he doesn't say where Maurice hit him, but obviously you can see it. And I thought that shooting it through the mirror was a good way to show that he doesn't want you to know, but like you find out anyway just by the way he describes it. And then also in the hallway, it was important that it was a closed hallway and not like a motel hallway where it's like open on the side and then there's stairs. It was really important that it was a closed hallway because it is all happening inside of his mind, and I wanted the feeling that everything is closed in and it's all like internal. And that's why I picked a room that had a sliding door on it, because it had a big window, so you got the feeling that it was closed, yet you could still see the outside world, which is what your mind is like. Also, the time of day that I picked was morning, also keeping true to the story. I wanted it to be morning time, so when you saw the light coming in, it was relatively soft, and of course it wasn't nighttime outside. And then the elevator, I needed just an elevator, and it was really important that it was an elevator because, of course, Maurice was the elevator man in the story. Now I want to move on to acting. For Holden, it was important that Holden had like a depressed feel to him, but also he was really up and down in his reactions. But whenever he had these reactions, he would always have to revert back to the depressed feel, and his rash decisions based on his emotions were his ups and downs. So, like the part in the film when Maurice says that it was $10 and Holden throws open the door, which really wasn't the best decision for him because if he hadn't thrown open the door, then he probably wouldn't have got punched or hit or money taken from him. So it was important that in Cooper's acting as Holden, he could show the rash of Holden's decisions and the repercussions, that he could really give to the audience what the repercussions were. It's not just the actions, but the reactions that are important too. And then also, when he was walking down the hallway, I felt it important that he would go a little crazy. If you noticed how he was saying the line delivery, he was kind of like out of it. Not only was he drunk because he had just drank bourbon, but also because inside of Holden's mind during this part in the novel, he's mentally unstable, and I felt that his acting inside of his mind should be just as mentally unstable as he was outside. And then also, in that same part when he's walking down the hallway, the repetition of Maurice, he keeps calling out Maurice's name, not only because he's trying to find him, but also because of the amount of times that he says, "Hey Chief," or that Maurice says, "Hey Chief" to Holden. I thought it was important to have that parallel in the repetition because Maurice and Holden in the film create good parallels to each other, because Maurice is what children usually view adults as, like really mean and just trying to get what they want, and then Holden, although he puts himself out as an adult, is really a child. And then on to Maurice. His acting was supposed to be really slow and calculated. Again, back to what we view adults as, or what adults are. So the slow and calculated talking and not really flipping out too much. Even when he got mad at Holden, it was more of a threat and not like an outburst. And this, I use that as a juxtaposition to Holden's personality, just to show like this is what Holden thinks he's an adult, and this is how he acts, but this is how adults actually act. And then Sunny, as she was acting, it was important for her to be uncaring and for the audience to know that she was a teenager, because she's the same age as Holden, but she has just that little amount of maturity more than Holden does, and that was really important for the audience to know through her line delivery that she didn't really care about what was happening up until the point where Holden was about to get hurt, and that's when her responsibility comes in, and that's something that Holden doesn't have as responsibility, so that kind of sets them apart, that she was living in an adult world as a child, but she doesn't put herself out to be a child. She just lives what she is and has responsibility, which makes her more mature than Holden is. And I wanted to really build that contrast. The costumes, Holden's pajamas, I wanted to keep really close to the book. I didn't want to put him in something else, obviously, because it was important that he was in pajamas. There's certain aspects of it, like when he does the narration aside, that it's terrible to be in pajamas when something like that happens. But again, it just shows his immaturity, because he's so just consumed by what other people are going to think and stuff, and that's a really childish way to view the world. And then the white tuxedo, I chose white because I wanted it to symbolize like a childish innocence, because this is inside of his subconscious. So like Holden, although he puts out to be, he says that he's older and that he's graying and stuff, inside of his mind, I think deep down he knows that he's a kid. And so the formulation of this imagination that he imagines this scene, and in it he's wearing white because of his subconscious telling him that he's still just a kid, and that even if it's a very minute amount, he still has his innocence. And then Sunny, she wears a pea coat and a green dress, or in this one it's a yellow dress, it's supposed to be a green dress. That was actually just technical failures because I couldn't get a hold of a dress in time. But I felt that the pea coat that she kept on throughout the whole scene was important, because she attempts to conceal the fact that she's keeping her pea coat on the whole time. I tried to put through that she was concealing herself, like she was kind of ashamed at what she was doing because she's just a kid, but you can still see her dress just barely under the pea coat. So the pea coat acts as like a blanket over her innocence, but you can still see that her innocence is seeping out from the bottom, because of her true self, which is, of course, the prostitute in the story.